The moment it happened, I swear the air left my lungs. I stood frozen in the corner of the Hudson Valley estate, clutching my leather portfolio so tightly. The papers inside slipped from my hands and scattered across the polished hardwood floor. The chandeliers glimmered. The late summer sun bled gold through the vineyard windows, and crystal flutes of champagne sparkled in every hand. Then came the sound, the sharp, deliberate chime of my father's silver spoon against his glass. Silence rippled across the room, every head turning toward him, every smile suspended in anticipation. "My wife and I," he began, his voice smooth, commanding, the same one he used to silence boardrooms, "couldn't be prouder to celebrate our Lena." My little sister beamed, her eyes glistening as she clung to Evan's arm. At just 29, she radiated innocence, that breathless hopefulness I seemed to have lost 2 years ago when I hit 31 and realized hope doesn't pay the bills. Dad's eyes swept the crowd, pausing dramatically the way only he can. "And as a wedding gift," he announced, "we are giving our beloved daughter 18% ownership in Brooks Freight." My mother's diamond earrings threw shards of light across the walls as she stepped forward, resting her manicured hand on his sleeve. "That stake is worth $1.6 million, she added, her voice honey-sweet and loud enough for every guest to hear. Applause thundered through the hall. Business partners nodded, family friends exchanged approving glances, and I felt my heart slam against my ribs. $1.6 million, just like that, handed to Lena, who has never lifted a finger for the company. I forced my lips into what I hoped passed for a smile. Eli, my boyfriend of 5 years, slid his hand into mine, squeezing so tightly it almost hurt. He knew what nights like this did to me. He'd seen me come home from holidays, eyes swollen from crying, still plastering on a smile so no one would know. Now, standing in that golden room, I felt like a ghost watching my family celebrate someone else's life while I stood invisible in plain sight. The MC, a family friend with a booming laugh, stepped to the microphone. "And let's not forget Maya Brooks," he said warmly. For a second, hope flickered in my chest. Finally, recognition. But then he added with a grin, "the reliable one who never asks for anything." The crowd laughed, polite, knowing chuckles that felt like knives against my skin. "My name is Maya Brooks. I'm 31 years old, the eldest daughter, and a cybersecurity engineer who built every step of her life without a safety net. And yet, in this family, I've always been known as the one who doesn't need anything." I swallowed hard, the champagne in my glass trembling with the weight of my hand. My sister leaned in, her perfume floral and expensive. "Can you believe it?" she whispered, her voice full of genuine joy. "I never imagined they'd give me something so big." "Congratulations," I heard myself reply, the words sliding out flat, mechanical, as if rehearsed. I've had years of practice sounding supportive while quietly breaking inside. The laughter of the room still echoed when my eyes caught Lena's. She glowed, unaware, while I stood there calculating every sacrifice I had made so she could shine. My chest felt like it might split open. For a long, charged moment, I couldn't move. Then I leaned closer to her, my voice low enough only she could hear. "This ends tonight," I whispered, and even I was startled by the calm finality in my tone. The music swelled again. The guests turned back to their champagne and conversation. But I knew something had shifted forever. What they thought would be a celebration was about to become the night that changed everything. Your comment matters. Share where you're from, so together we can witness how far this story of courage can reach across the globe. Subscribe and join me, because what comes next is a journey of finally reclaiming my voice after years of being forgotten. The applause for Lena still echoed when I felt my legs move of their own accord. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I stepped into the center of the room. Dozens of faces turned, wine glasses paused midair. For the first time that night, all eyes landed on me. "Why doesn't your firstborn get the same respect?" I asked, my voice steady, though my pulse pounded in my throat. A hush rippled across the room. My father's smile faltered before his jaw hardened into the familiar mask of authority. "Maya," he said, his tone sharp enough to slice through the air. "The transfer is done. It's legal. Finalized. Tonight is about your sister. Don't spoil this celebration." My mother tilted her head, her voice dripping with the sweetness that had fooled strangers for decades. "Darling, you've always been so successful. You don't need shares, Lena. She needs this to feel secure. You've built your own path. Isn't that enough?" A murmur rose from the guests. Some nodded at my parents' words. Others leaned forward, hungry for the drama unraveling before them. My chest tightened, but I refused to look away. "Being capable shouldn't mean being punished," I said. My words came out quieter than I expected, but the silence in the room carried them to every corner. Lena shifted uncomfortably, her arm still looped through Evan's. She looked at me with wide, confused eyes, as though she couldn't understand why I wasn't smiling for her. Then, like salt poured into an open wound, my phone buzzed. I glanced down instinctively, and the screen lit up with a fresh notification from Instagram. It was Lena's account, officially worth $1.6 million. "Thanks, Mom and Dad. Couldn't have done it without my sister showing me what independence looks like." She had tagged me, public, permanent, for the whole world to see. A wave of laughter rippled through the crowd, this time sharper, crueler. Whispers hissed around me, like snakes. My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles ached. Eli's gaze burned into me from across the room, his eyes full of anger and worry, but he didn't move. He knew this was my moment. I felt my breath catch, my vision narrowing. Slowly, deliberately, I reached up and unclasped the silver hairpin tucked into my bun. My grandmother had given it to me when I was 14, pressing it into my palm with the words, "Never forget your worth, even if they do." The metal felt warm against my skin, heavy with memory. I walked toward the head table where my parents stood, pride still painted across their faces, though the room was buzzing with tension. Without a word, I placed the hairpin on the white linen, right beside the golden certificate that bore Lena's name. The contrast was jarring, my heirloom of love and history beside their gift of power and money. A gasp swept through the room. My mother's lips parted, her practiced smile faltering. "Maya," she began, her voice trembling. But I didn't wait for excuses. I turned, lifted my chin, and reached for Eli's hand. Together we walked toward the wide double doors, my heels echoing like a drumbeat in the silence. Behind me, I could feel the weight of 100 stares, some pitying, some disbelieving, most stunned into silence. The party resumed in awkward fragments, but the fracture had already split wide open. As the doors closed behind us, the night air hit my face, cool and sharp, clearing my lungs for the first time in years. And I knew, whatever storm this choice unleashed, I would not run from it. I had already started rewriting the story. The email countdown keeps pulsing on my phone like a small red heart that belongs to someone else. Tessa sets it face down on the table. "We will not let a clock decide the truth," she says. Then she pushes a single page toward me. It is a plan, simple, clean, risky in a way that makes my skin prickle. We set up a new account in my name, but not my hands. Tessa's paralegal opens it under council control. Every keystroke is recorded. Every step is witnessed. The purpose is one transfer small enough to be bait and loud enough to be irresistible. I sign nothing. I touch nothing. I watch. I know people will say I should have called the police and waited. I hear the chorus before the first note. But I also know what happens when proof walks into a shredder. I choose movement. I choose a path that might make strangers judge me and might save what my grandfather built. Tessa nods once, as if she heard the thought. An independent lab images my laptop and phone. They pull hashes. They pull IP trails. They trace the electronic signature that carries my name to a workstation at our headquarters that I have never used. The user profile belongs to IT. The login time matches my flight home. I see the map of pings and feel a cold line draw itself down my spine. By noon, the honeypot account shows as active in a way only a handful of insiders would notice. A restricted note appears in the internal ledger for a holding entity with a bland name. 4 hours later, a new request hits the system. It points to a donor fund with a noble title and no history. The request carries a comment that reads, "Cover the gap under consulting." I feel the catch in my throat. We approve a tiny test transfer that cannot hurt anyone and cannot be mistaken for anything but bait. The lab watches the packet move through the network like a silver fish. It surfaces in a bank I do not recognize. Then it slides into an umbrella charity with a mission statement about youth enrichment and a board page that does not load. Tessa raises an eyebrow. We wait. Another hop. A subaccount appears labeled Outreach. A single recurring payee sits beneath it. Name: Janine Calder. I know that name before the search result opens. She taught my brother economics in high school. She wrote his college recommendation and called him brilliant in front of a cafeteria. She was at our house once for a fundraiser. She laughed at my father's jokes. Tessa scrolls through filings. The charity is new. It lists a mailbox in a building that rents virtual suites by the hour. It files a single report with expenses that look like someone pulled numbers from a hat. The outreach payee receives $175,000 per quarter for advisory services. There is no advisory note attached. There is only a pattern that looks like a tunnel with the lights off. I call Ruth. She confirms what I already feel. Miss Calder met with my mother twice in the last year. Short visits, closed doors, a delivery once that smelled like printer ink. I thank her and write the times. Morning light spilled across the kitchen table, catching on the edges of the receipts and photographs I'd left scattered overnight. I hadn't slept much. The image of my parents standing in the rain clung to me, but for once I hadn't caved. I hadn't opened the door. That small act of defiance hummed in my chest like electricity. When I powered on my laptop, I expected nothing more than the usual flood of emails. Instead, at the very top of my inbox, one subject line froze me in place. "Congratulations, Maya Brooks, Director of Cyber Risk." I clicked, breath hitching as I read. The words blurred, but the meaning was clear. My CEO was officially promoting me, effective immediately. My salary would jump to $240,000 a year, plus bonuses. After years of clawing my way up, of doing twice the work for half the recognition, the title was finally mine. Director. Eli padded into the room, coffee steaming in his hand. He caught sight of my face before I could say a word. "Tell me," he said, smiling. I turned the laptop toward him. His eyes widened, then softened with pride. He set the mug down and pulled me into his arms. "See? They don't get to define you anymore. The world already knows your worth." I wanted to believe him. And then, as if the universe wanted to underline the point, another notification flashed across my screen. This time, it was from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I read it twice before I let myself believe it. My application from last year, the security protocol I'd built in stolen hours between projects, had been approved. Patent granted. My name officially registered. Along with it, a substantial financial bonus from my company for securing the rights. I laughed, almost giddy. They handed Lena a gift. I earned this, but the day wasn't finished with me yet. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost declined, but curiosity won. Miss Brooks? The voice was crisp, professional. This is Horizon National Bank. We reviewed your work on fraud prevention. We'd like to retain your services. A 6-month consulting contract, $500,000 total. Are you available for a meeting next week? I gripped the phone tighter, my mind reeling. $500,000. My work, my ideas, being courted on their own merit. Yes, I managed, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I'll make time. When I hung up, Eli leaned against the counter, his eyebrows raised. $1.5 million handed to your sister and $500,000 offered to you in a single call. Tell me again who's really winning here. I smiled, but it was tight around the edges, because I knew what was coming next. That evening, as I was cooking dinner, my phone lit up with a group chat notification. Aunt Judith's name at the top. My stomach dropped even before I opened it. Her message scrolled across the screen, venom-wrapped in pity. I worry about Maya. She's clearly under too much pressure. This behavior isn't normal. We should all pray for her mental stability. Within minutes, the thread filled with heart emojis, murmurs of agreement, whispers from cousins and family friends. They weren't applauding my promotion. They weren't congratulating me on the patent. They were labeling me unstable, broken, defective. Eli picked up the phone, his jaw tightening as he scrolled. They're spinning the narrative again, he said grimly. I sank into a chair, the glow of the laptop screen still showing my promotion letter, the patent notice, the consulting offer. Proof of my strength sat in front of me. Yet, in my family's story, I was the weak link. I closed my eyes, a bitter laugh slipping out. So this is their plan. Erase my achievements with rumors. The phone buzzed again, another wave of comments piling in. For the first time, though, I didn't feel the urge to defend myself. Let them whisper. Let them paint me as broken, because I was starting to realize that their narrative only had power if I kept agreeing to play along. By Sunday afternoon, I felt like my phone had turned into a battlefield. Every call, every message carried the same pressure, the same plea. Be at the wedding. Don't make waves. Don't embarrass the family. My mother's voice came first, sharp under a layer of honey. Maya, this is Lena's once-in-a-lifetime moment. Please, don't spoil it. People will be watching. Then Lena herself, softer, almost trembling. Maya, I need you there. I can't walk down the aisle without you. You're my sister. Please, don't let me down now. Her words might have pierced me deeper if I hadn't just scrolled through her Instagram. Photo after photo of flower arrangements, champagne flutes, couture fittings, and under them, her captions. When you're officially worth more than $1 million, you deserve the very best. The kind of triumph that left no room for me. I sat at the kitchen table, papers and photos spread like evidence of a crime. The patent notice glowed on my laptop screen, silent proof that I had built something no one could erase. Eli leaned against the counter, his arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. You know you could end this today, he said. File a lawsuit, force them to strip your code from their systems, sue for damages. It would crush them. For a moment, I let myself imagine it. Dad's composure cracking under legal scrutiny. Mom's public smile collapsing into panic. The Brooks family name dragged through headlines. A clean strike. Justice. But when I closed my eyes, I didn't see my parents. I saw the warehouse crew who had shared sandwiches with me during late shifts. I saw the drivers who had thanked me when my system stopped the first hack. People who had nothing to do with favoritism or theft. People who would lose everything if the company fell. I shook my head. I won't sue them. Eli stared at me like I had lost my mind. Maya, they stole from you. This is your chance to bring them down. I'm going to license the system, I said slowly, hearing my own conviction grow. They'll keep using it, but they'll pay. And the money won't go to mom or dad. It'll go to an employee fund. Healthcare, education, real support. If I'm going to take power back, I'll do it without burning innocent people. Eli dragged a hand down his face. Half the world will call that weakness. Maybe, I admitted, my voice steady. But destroying them won't heal me. Protecting the people who never had a choice, that's justice I can live with. It was a decision guaranteed to divide opinion. Some would call it merciful, others naive. But for the first time, I was choosing on my own terms. That evening, I drafted my letter. The words flowed sharper than I expected. I will attend Lena's wedding under 2 conditions. 1, a signed acknowledgement of the favoritism I endured. 2, a licensing agreement with all proceeds directed to the employee fund. When I pressed send, my hands trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. For decades, I had begged for scraps. Tonight, I issued terms. But the universe wasn't done. Just before midnight, my inbox lit up with a new message. The sender's name made my breath hitch. Michael Hayes. Maya, long time no see. Didn't expect our paths to cross like this. But for what it's worth, I think you're right. Michael Hayes, my ex from college. The man I had once planned a startup with, before youth and pride tore us apart. Now he was Brooks Freight's legal counsel. Eli read over my shoulder, his jaw hardening. So the lawyer standing against you is also the man who once stood beside you. I closed the laptop, my heart pounding. My letter was out in the world. My conditions were clear, but Michael's sudden reappearance blurred the line between past and present, ally and enemy. And I couldn't shake the question. Was this fate handing me leverage or laying a trap I'd never see coming? By the time Monday rolled around, the first cracks in Brooks Freight were already spreading like fractures in glass. News hit the trade journals that the company had lost its contract with a major supermarket chain, worth millions in annual revenue. Employees whispered about paychecks being delayed, about overtime hours suddenly cut. The facade of power my father wore so effortlessly was beginning to slip. I read the reports in silence, a strange mix of anger and vindication coursing through me. For years, they had acted untouchable. Now the numbers told a different story. 2 consecutive quarters in the red, more than $3 million lost. Then came the family drama. Evan, Lena's fiancé, demanded a prenuptial agreement. He wanted their assets separate. Word spread fast that he was worried about tying himself to a sinking ship. I could almost picture my parents' faces when Lena brought it up, the golden image cracking under pressure. At home, my own phone buzzed with something entirely different. A venture capital firm had seen my patent approval in the industry announcements. The partner's voice on the other end of the line was brisk but warm. "We want to invest in you, Ms. Brooks. $5 million for a startup built around your security system. You could build your own company tomorrow." I nearly dropped the phone. $5 million. Real, tangible backing from people who saw my worth, not because of my last name, but because of my work. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the sunlight across my dining table, wondering if the universe was finally offering me an escape hatch. Eli leaned in the doorway, watching my reaction. "You don't need their company anymore," he said softly. "You could build something cleaner, stronger, without all the baggage." I wanted to believe it, But a part of me couldn't stop thinking about the faces of those workers, about the years of sweat I'd poured into helping my family without recognition. Was it my responsibility to rescue a company that had stolen from me? Or was it time to let it collapse under the weight of its own arrogance? That night, my phone buzzed again. A text from my father. "Meet me at the Union Club tomorrow, noon. We need to fix this before the wedding." The words made my stomach twist. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. Even now, even with the company unraveling, he still believed he could command me back into line. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Eli's reflection faint beside mine. "You don't owe them anything," he said. But deep inside, I knew tomorrow would mark a turning point. Whether I walked into that club as the dutiful daughter or the woman who held the leverage, the story of our family was about to change. I set the phone down, the silence heavy around me. Outside, the city lights flickered like watchful eyes. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of the confrontation, but I did wonder if I finally stood my ground. Would it be the blow that brought Brooks Freight to its knees, or the first step toward rebuilding something entirely my own? The next day, I walked into the Union Club with my head high and my pulse pounding. The lobby smelled of leather and old money, the kind of place my father had always loved to parade through. He was already there, seated at a polished mahogany table, a glass of scotch at his elbow. My mother sat beside him, her pearls perfectly aligned, her eyes avoiding mine. Michael Hayes was there too, my ex, their legal counsel. His presence tightened something in my chest. He offered a polite nod, his expression unreadable. "Sit," my father said, the command in his tone unchanged. For a moment, I almost laughed. He still thought this was his arena, that I'd play by his rules. I sat anyway, folding my hands on the table. Eli stood behind me, his quiet strength filling the silence. My father cleared his throat and slid a folder across the table. Inside, on heavy company letterhead, was a statement signed by both him and my mother. It wasn't flowery, it wasn't emotional, but it was acknowledgement. Written words that admitted favoritism had existed, words they could never again take back. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she pushed it closer. "We should have been fairer," she whispered. For a moment, I couldn't speak. After decades of denial, after years of being gaslit into believing I was overreacting, there it was in black and white. Proof. Michael leaned forward, his eyes flicking to mine. "The licensing agreement is ready as well. Employee fund designated. Terms exactly as you requested." I glanced at Eli, then back at Michael. His voice carried no malice, only professionalism tinged with something else. Maybe regret, maybe respect. I signed. My father's jaw tightened as though each stroke of my pen carved away his control. But the reckoning wasn't finished. That evening, at a family dinner, meant to smooth things over before the wedding, Lena stood suddenly, her glass trembling in her hand. "I have something to say," she announced, her voice unsteady but growing stronger with each word. The room hushed. My father frowned, already bracing for rebellion. "Evan and I," Lena continued, her eyes scanning the room, "we've decided not to join Brooks Freight. We're starting our own creative agency. We don't need the family's millions," gasps spread like wildfire. My mother froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. My father's face turned a dangerous shade of red. Lena looked at me then, her gaze steady. "Maya showed me what real independence looks like. I want to build something that's mine, not something handed to me." For once, I couldn't read my father's expression. Shock, anger, fear. It all flickered across his face. The empire he had built, the control he had clung to, was slipping through his fingers. And then, In a voice I'd never heard from him before, he muttered, "The company is in trouble. We can't survive much longer. Maya, we need your help." The words landed like a stone in my chest. My father, the man who had dismissed me, ignored me, stolen from me, was asking for my help. I stared at him, the weight of decades pressing on my shoulders. Every slight, every missed celebration, every sacrifice, it all stood between us. And now, in this moment of collapse, he finally saw me. But recognition born of desperation was not the same as love. I rose from my chair slowly, my eyes never leaving his. For the first time, the room waited on my words, the balance of power tilting. And I wondered, was this the moment I stepped in to salvage what remained? Or the moment I finally let it all burn? The morning of Lena's wedding dawned cool and clear, sunlight spilling through our bedroom window like a promise. For weeks, I had wondered if I would even show up. Now, as I zipped the back of my navy dress and fastened the pearl earrings Eli had given me years ago, I realized the choice was no longer about my parents. It was about me, about reclaiming the space they had tried to push me out of my whole life. When we arrived at the hotel ballroom, the air shimmered with the scent of roses and candle wax. White silk draped from the ceiling, violins played softly in the background. Guests milled around in glittering gowns and tuxedos, the kind of crowd my parents lived for. For a moment, my chest tightened, the old instinct rising to shrink myself, to fade into the background. Then I felt Eli's hand steady on the small of my back, grounding me. "You don't walk in here as their afterthought," he whispered. "You walk in as the woman who set the terms." Inside the bridal suite, Lena stood in front of a mirror, her gown cascading around her like water. I remembered when she was a little girl draping Mom's scarves over her shoulders, playing princess while I played the loyal attendant. For years, I had accepted that role without question. Today, things were different. She turned, her eyes wide and almost shy. "You came," she whispered. "I almost didn't," I admitted, fastening the last pearl button on her dress. My voice was steady. "But I'm here, on my terms." Tears welled in her eyes as she touched my hand. "Thank you, Maya. For once, I want to start fresh. With you." Her words softened something in me, though forgiveness was still far away. But I nodded, because in that moment, I saw not the sister who had benefited from favoritism, but the woman who wanted to break free of it. During the ceremony, sunlight streamed through the glass windows as Lena and Evan exchanged vows. When she said, "I promise to build a family rooted in fairness and love," her eyes flicked toward me. The message was clear, a vow not just to her husband, but to herself, and maybe, in some way, to me. At the reception, laughter and music filled the air. I kept expecting the familiar sting of exclusion, the quiet digs, the shadow of comparison. Instead, something unexpected happened. My father approached, his expensive shoes crunching on the gravel path outside where I had stepped for air. He looked older than I remembered, the weight of months of financial failure pressing into the lines of his face. "You've built a good life," he said quietly, almost as if the words cost him something. I met his gaze. "I have." Without shortcuts, he nodded once, the pride in his shoulders sagging into something closer to humility. "Your mother and we'd like you to consider joining the board. We need your expertise." For years, I would have jumped at even a scrap of recognition. Now, I felt no rush to answer. "I'll consider it," I said, the boundary clear in my tone. Later, while champagne glasses clinked and music swelled, Lena tapped her glass to get everyone's attention. "Evan and I have decided not to join Brooks Freight," she announced, her voice steady. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, shocked gasps punctuating the air. Instead, we're starting our own creative agency. Independence matters more than inheritance. My mother froze, her champagne flute suspended midair. My father's jaw tightened, but for once, he didn't speak. In that moment, I realized the gravitational pull of our family had shifted. The golden child had walked away from the pedestal, and suddenly, I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the blueprint for a different way forward. 6 months later, Thanksgiving dinner unfolded not in my parents' mansion, but in my Brooklyn apartment. The table was crowded with people who had chosen me. Friends, mentors, colleagues. Lena and Evan sat across from us, showing pictures of their new office space. My parents arrived with a basket of apples from a small orchard they had begun tending. Their gift, modest, thoughtful, almost startling in its simplicity. As I arranged dessert plates in the kitchen, I paused, listening to the hum of voices spilling from the dining room. It was different this time. No undertow of comparison, no invisible wall dividing us. Just conversation, messy and imperfect, but honest. For the first time, I understood something essential. Revenge had been my fuel, the spark that lit the fire. But it wasn't what carried me here. Boundaries did. Choices did. The willingness to walk away when love felt like chains did. I thought of my grandmother's silver hairpin, still resting in a box at home, and the words she had once whispered, "Never forget your worth." I hadn't, not this time. So here's what I know now. Family isn't about blood or money or appearances. It's about how people treat you when no one is watching. It's about fairness, respect, and love that doesn't come with conditions. The lesson took me 31 years to learn. But it's simple. Holding on to hate will hollow you out. Setting boundaries will set you free. And forgiveness, when it finally comes, isn't about excusing the past. It's about giving yourself permission to live a beautiful future.